Welcome back to the Self-Care Zone podcast and our Leaders of Leaders series. Today I'm here with Alannah Black from My Treehouse. Hello, Alannah.
Hi, Brett. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So can you tell me a bit about your story and how you came into the community services sector?
Absolutely. I have been in this industry for as long as I can remember. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know anything else. From the age of kind of 18, coming out of school, I stumbled into a support worker role.
Yep.
Did that for a number of years, loved it. And then there was the conception, sorry, of the LAC program.
Okay.
So I applied, was successful in that role, and then we saw the rollout of the program across the Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when that was underway, I kind of found myself wanting to be more involved in participant support and be more frontline than sitting behind a desk full time.
Yep.
So jumped back over into support coordination. Really loved that. That was essentially the bulk of my career.
Mm-hmm.
From there, kind of moved into support coordination management and then had a break to have a baby.
Yep.
Came back and found my role now as general manager at my treehouse.
Awesome. So it sounds like you've seen quite a lot of different experience and roles throughout the NDIS world.
Absolutely. And from when I started to now, the NDIS, we've been on a tumultuous journey together.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of legislation changes, policy changes to keep up with, and everything in between.
Yeah. So it seems like you would have come across, lots of different approaches and, companies that say they're for their staff and yet flog them like a dead horse. Um,
Absolutely.
I mean, haven't we all seen that? Like,
Unfortunately, absolutely.
yeah,
I've found that the smaller the organization initially, when you can kind of build culture from the ground up,
yeah,
is the most positive culture in the workforce
yeah,
that I've experienced.
yeah,
Working for some of those larger organizations, they tend to only care about KPIs, numbers, not people.
yeah,
Whereas when you're working with somewhere with less hierarchy, more decision making power, more impact, you can actually look at what matters rather than
mhm,
just KPIs.
yeah,
Obviously, a business needs to be sustainable,
yep,
but it's not just about that bottom dollar at the end of the day.
yeah. And you've progressed up the ladder as well, going from a support worker to now being general manager. So then,
Absolutely.
how have you seen your leadership style change over those years?
It's changed a lot.
Yeah,
I think the trap that we get into as leaders, and I still get imposter syndrome sometimes. Yeah, it blows my mind where I am at the moment.
yeah,
But when you're new to a role in leadership, I think that you're going to go in guns blazing, you're going to change how everything happens, you're going to do it better, you're going to make your team perform. And it's not the case. It's not the case. It's less about you and more about the team and the people that you support.
mm,
So from learning
yeah,
back then, I have a very different approach to working within the team. And it's less, you and I and them. And it's more, together we're all working towards the same outcome. There are days when our
mhm,
rostering manager is off, so we might roster, I never know what I'm going to be doing in that day, and we'll just pick up the slack wherever we need to do it. Um,
yeah,
I think you posted this morning about how culture isn't just, free snacks and drinks.
yeah,
And whilst we do
yeah.
have that, and I can promise that it's better to work somewhere with snacks and drinks than not snacks and drinks. I
Hangry.
do believe that it's also, look, I'm going to take the snacks over somewhere that doesn't have them.
Yeah,
But it's more about, shifting your style of leadership as well to that person rather than having a rigid take on how you approach a situation or a person. Everyone's got a
yeah,
lot happening behind the scenes outside of work. We just see a snippet of their day. So to have the same approach to everyone is just not the
yeah,
way to do things.
yeah. I think too you know, over time, your leadership style has to change because you you've got different relationships with staff the longer you spend with them. Like, coming into a new team, you've got a new team you're getting to learn, and as you progress through that relationship and the dynamic changes, so then your leadership style needs to change to suit that as well.
Exactly. And that person changes throughout the time that you know them. Their careers
Yeah.
change, their goals, their family lives. Sometimes even they might go to part time from full time. So you've got to be flexible to retain staff. Otherwise,
Mm.
they become unhappy, they move on, you lose a phenomenal worker because you've been too rigid in your thinking or the way that you support someone.
Yeah. Hmm. So then, over those
But
years, thinking back about your leadership style, what's changed for you personally?
the biggest change that I saw was when I had my son. So I will admit that I was a little bit rigid in my way of thinking to staff members that did have
Hmm.
kids. And it was always a bit mind blowing to me how many days off someone might need for a kid, how many appointments your
Yeah.
baby has. Oh, you want to go see them at school? Like, well, can't we do that another day? So now, actually having my son, I'm incredibly lucky that I have the flexibility to do all of that whilst working full time. So it's made me a lot more compassionate and a lot more flexible with timesheets. As long as you're doing your work, I don't care where you're working, I don't care when you're working, and depending on your role, there's always that flexibility to, families first. So that was the biggest change that
Yeah.
I had and the biggest eye-opening experience for me in terms of how I run a team.
Yeah. I think too. There's a lot
But
of
we also,
like the younger people that don't have kids. Yep.
yeah, so we have a lot of staff members that don't have kids either. But that doesn't mean they don't have other responsibilities
Yeah.
outside of work, uni commitments and things like that.
Yeah.
So it can be transitioned
Yep.
across the entire workforce.
Yeah. But I think too that it's those younger support workers that may not have the kids. They're going, oh well, why do you need the extra time off? I'm just gonna. I need the time off as well. And I think it's important that leaders go, hang on, yeah, you do need that time off just as much. Because as you said,
Exactly.
there are other commitments outside of work. It's, you've got to take the dog to the vet, sick
Yeah.
family members, aging parents, all these other commitments. And I think that that's part of that person and their culture. And that then is, if the company culture is just about the staff member, and forgetting about the other community around that support member, that staff member, then we're forgetting a whole big bunch of what that support worker is and who they are.
Exactly. People are more than their job.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, family, friends, whatever's important to you will come above that job. As
Mm.
passionate as you are about your employment and your role, at the end of the day, that all doesn't matter if something else is going on outside of work.
Yeah. So you're saying before about imposter syndrome. A lot of leaders go, "Oh, but I'm the leader. I need to put in this front of, this is how it is. This is how it needs to be done." But then you sit back and go, "Oh, did I make the right decision? Was it the right choice that I made?"
Yeah.
Can you tell me about a time where that's happened for you?
Oh, look, I don't think that in recent years I've ever made a decision alone or solo. At the end of the day, it might be that I sign off on something, but there's also always consultation with the team that it's affecting.
Yeah.
We're never going to make an adjustment or change something without seeing how it will impact a participant, a community, a
Hmm.
worker. I work with an amazing team of people, and they all started as support workers within the business. So
Yeah.
all of our management team, excluding myself, I'm the exception to the rule, but our management team all started as support workers at my treehouse and then
Okay.
have progressed throughout. So they know what it's like to work here. They know what it takes. They know the participant more than me more often. So I really value any input that they have when it comes to making decisions as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because, as you said, the decisions that you make ultimately affect the support workers. And it's like, as humans, we don't like change. We, push back against that change. But
Correct.
if we're consulted on that change first, it almost makes that transition a little bit easier, a little bit easier to swallow.
Absolutely. And I find that some background on that decision is super beneficial to everyone
Yeah,
involved. You don't just go, okay, we've changed this, go do that.
yeah,
It's more along, this is the issue that we were seeing or the concern we had. This is what we did to have a look at what we could do, and this is the outcome. And
yeah,
as such, we've made this policy change or whatever that might be. But there's a reason for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that consultation isn't just in terms of, with the team and the support workers. It's, where possible also with the participants and saying, hey, we're
Yeah.
going in this direction. Because ultimately, if they're not comfortable with the changes that are made, they may look elsewhere.
Yes. And it is a flooded market.
Yeah,
Participants, and rightfully so, they have all of the decision making power in the world to go and look at
yep,
other providers.
yep,
So you really have to be involved with them and their stakeholders if they wish,
yep,
to really make sure you're doing a quality support. We also have what we call the mowing crew over at my treehouse. And the crew is made up of people with disabilities that are paid award wages,
mm-hmm,
and they work and do lawns and yard maintenance twice a week.
yep,
And, they're also able to shape how we see things or, put a new lens over decision making because they're, participants at other providers, they're our employees, they're living every single day, with a support worker. So it's
yeah,
really insightful for them to be able to provide feedback too.
yeah, yeah, awesome. So then, do you think that it's just the leadership's responsibility to change company culture, or is it a company decision?
I think that it starts from somewhere. So if you do nothing, you may end up with a company culture that no one wants to be in. No one,
Yep.
is kind to each other and it gets a little bit toxic. But I think if we can role model how we want that culture to look, it
Mm-hmm.
does flow through.
Yep.
And I think it's really important to be able to call each other out on
Yeah.
any culture issues that come up, or be able to say, hey, I'm not really comfortable with what you said or what happened there, and be able to resolve it.
Yeah.
Because if someone is scared to approach someone, especially in management, for example, then that's not the culture that you want to be creating in the first place.
Yeah. Yep. And I think too that at the moment there seems to be that shift of companies realizing that they need to change their company culture because what they've been doing isn't working. And I think there's a slow shift to going, hang on, we actually need to make some changes here.
And that can be incredibly challenging when you
Yeah.
are already in the midst of negative culture, for example. How do you turn the ship around?
Mm.
Um, and I think that that's where it comes down to those one-on-ones. We do check-ins, and support workers can opt, even if they wanted weekly check-ins. We have
Yep.
well-being questions. They talk to their team coordinators about any struggles that they have. They can opt for monthly, 3 monthly, 6 monthly, whatever suits them. But using that opportunity is a really good idea to address anything that is happening in terms of, this wasn't really okay, this could have been done this way. But it also gives them an opportunity to provide feedback to us.
Yeah.
So we've got constant kind of communication with all of our team, and we really encourage feedback.
Yeah. Cool. And I think too that, there's kind of a bit of a fear in that as well, from what I've seen, in that if I bring this up with you, is this going to, give me reduced hours? Is this going to come back and haunt me in 6 months' time? If there's an opportunity for a promotion, am I going to miss out on that because I raised this concern with you?
Yes. And I think that the only way to really build that level of trust is with time and rapport building. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that there is a magic wand that can go, hey, just come to me, it's fine, it's safe. I think that it is a matter of let me talk the talk whilst also walking the walk
Yeah.
and, showing you that I value your feedback, I value you as a human, your experiences. And just because you are flagging something with us, that doesn't mean that it's automatically negative.
Mm.
Support workers, they all have, my number, they have the managing director's number, they can communicate with any of us. Like, no one's hiding behind a screen, no one's, not answering calls. We really try and make that communication safe, or less scary, because I know it's never going to always feel safe.
I think that's the benefit of having a smaller company, in that there is that, the opportunity to go, hang on, I just need to go and talk to Alannah for a second, and
Yeah,
that you're there. It's not, you're not sitting in a high-rise building in the middle of Sydney or, interstate. You're literally there. You can go and ask anything you
correct.
need.
Correct. And that way, we sit in a relatively open plan office, but we
Yeah,
all know what's happening across the organization. You
yeah,
could pretty well talk to any of us. And, I'll clarify we confidentiality and all of that. But,
yeah,
if you needed something, we'll generally have an oversight or a gist of every single participant that we currently have, every single support worker that's employed. We'll
yeah,
know who they are, have met them, and be available to them.
yeah. And I think that's going back to that, trust and rapport you're talking about, in that you've got to build that for them to then speak up and go, hang on, I need some help with this, or this wasn't quite right. Can I ask you this?
Absolutely. And it starts, all the way back from the interview.
Yeah,
Myself and another member of management will conduct the interview. So you're
yeah,
meeting us, straight there. I run inductions. You have access to the rest of the team on induction day.
yeah,
Participant intakes, it will be myself, our service manager, or our rostering manager going out to meet them. You're automatically having access to us, regardless of what the support is, what your role is, and we're here to see the best outcomes for our participants. That's
yeah.
really
Awesome.
what we're about.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're doing a great job doing that as well.
Thank you.
So, thinking about ways that you can, take the culture that you already built, do you have any ideas of where you want to go to?
Look, we aren't the biggest organization in the
Yep,
area, and we have no plans to be the biggest organization in the area.
yep,
We are really focused on quality support and doing what we do well.
yeah,
We don't do things that are out of our scope. We're
mm-hmm,
not interested in trying to grow and grow and grow and lose out on the ability to maintain the culture that we have,
yeah,
because I think that missing some of those steps, it can seem like you're losing control. If you're just onboarding, doing intakes, you lose that person-centered touch.
yeah,
So I think just maintaining that steady level of growth without
mm-hmm,
biting off more than we can chew, and really just letting ourselves feel the stress or the pressure of that, and then being able to identify and reflect on that. That's really the goal, just maintenance, steady growth, and not trying to do too much.
yeah. I think that's it. Like, you get this idea of, oh, I need to do this, and then we'll branch off into do this and then do that. I think you get too disorganized around what's going on. You're taking
Yes,
on too much, and then what your core business is then gets left behind because you're putting so much effort into these other things. And
exactly. And
then,
for what? There are other
yeah,
providers out there doing amazing things in that space. Why would we try and enter that
Yeah.
when that's not what we're passionate about, or it's not what we're the best at?
Yeah.
Other providers, I would always prefer to refer a participant over to someone that is able to kill it rather
Mm.
than take it on and do, a poor job at it.
Yeah. And that's like the post I put up the other day talking about collaboration in that, we need to have this change in mindset of going, but they're the competition. The competition is the funding changes. It's the societal pressures of that's not what people with disabilities do. It's all these other things where if we can work together as a team within the NDIS, you might do something better than what we do. I'm not going to try and step on your toes, but I know that if it comes to it, then you can refer to us and we'll refer to you. We're going to build each other up and
Yeah.
share knowledge and skills amongst us.
Yeah, we're not the enemies,
Yeah.
and that was how it used to be. It was very much a collaboration or sharing even like group activity spaces or getting
Yep.
together for groups. And then the NDIS has obviously made it a lot more difficult to sustain a business. And I think
Yeah.
everyone went into panic mode, and then everyone just started popping up, and there was a lot more competition, and it's kind of just spiraled a little bit out of control.
Yeah. I think too that because I remember when the NDIS rolled out, I was working in Sydney at the time, and there was this thing of, oh, we need to look at other ways we can bring in business. We need to set these programs up that are, you want to do a cooking program, we run that on a Monday. You want to go swimming, you can go to this service and do that on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
I think we've gone away from that, and that was the intention to start with, but now
exactly.
that's not what it is.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of it's all or nothing. If you don't want to give us all of your hours, then, we're
Yeah.
not interested.
Yeah.
Whereas we collaborate with a lot of different providers.
Yep.
We do personal care support. We love personal care, in-home support, seeing participants' days be made from that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we're the best at housing.
Mm.
So I'm more than happy for you to go and, choose where you'd like to live, who you want to live with, go live your best life. And then we can just come in and do that drop in support. And I'm so fine to hand over to another, support worker, make sure all of our notes are shared or however that system needs to look.
Yep.
But more collaboration is definitely needed.
Absolutely, it is. So thinking about, your going back to your leadership, has there been a book or a podcast or something that you've read, listened to that's gone, hang on, I could make that change and that's improved your leadership?
I'm not a podcast girl. So this is my first podcast that I've actually ever been on or listened to.
It's
But
all up from here.
you've opened the gateway of podcasts.
Yeah.
But there was a book by Martin Strong, I believe his name is, and
Yep.
it's not safe for work in the title, but it was basically talking about his leadership style. He was a lot more aggressive, so I don't necessarily take all of what he has to say,
Yep.
but it was really about providing staff opportunities for growth and not
Yeah.
being afraid to have difficult and uncomfortable conversations because of your personal feelings.
Yeah.
It was more about being able to have those conversations to improve a staff member, to provide them constructive feedback so that they can grow. So I guess making it less about yourself and more about the other person.
Mm.
People don't care that I'm nervous when I'm having a difficult conversation. That's the last thing on their mind. So I
Yeah.
really need to put that aside.
Yeah. So then how do you then following that difficult conversation, how do you look after yourself? Like there's a lot of, self-care has to be a bubble bath with candles and, all this, but that's not the true meaning of self-care.
Honestly, there are some days where self care will go out the window,
Yep.
um, which isn't ideal, but it's the reality. And I think a lot of us in these positions do find ourselves kind of neglecting that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just remembering that you can't pour from an empty cup. It's very, very cliche,
It
but
is, but it's very relevant too.
yeah, if I can't, you know, make myself grounded, regrouped, and calm, then the rest of the team is going to also be flustered. They're going to be uneasy. So I play video games. I'm very boring. When my son is in bed after 7:30, that's my time. I like to sit in bed, just wind down and play some video games.
Yeah. And that's it. It's working out what works for you. For some people, it might be going to the gym. It might be going out and going to the movies with friends. And you've worked out that for you, you're a gamer. You love playing video games. That's great.
Yeah. And
There's no shame in that.
Yeah. Well, working with people and humans all day long and talking and, having to be available, I think makes my form of self-care just very introverted. Like I'm very happy to sit in the silence, sit on my own for a minute and just be with my thoughts, whatever that might be that day.
Yeah. So do you think that you're an introvert or an extrovert? Or are you in the middle?
It depends on the situation. So people are always very surprised when I say I actually don't like talking about myself, because when it comes to the NDIS or the organization, I am happy to yap all day. I will talk to anyone, anywhere. But on the weekend, I'm very happy to just not say anything.
Go deep into video games.
Exactly. Not leave my house all weekend.
Yeah. And finding out what works for you in terms of self-care is a matter of what gives me energy. And, for some people, that could be staying inside and playing video games or binge watching Netflix or whatever. Where other people, it's going outside, spending time with family, going and doing an activity that's not work. And I'm thinking about that rather than work.
Yes. Yeah. My 3-year-old, he certainly helps to reground me as well. He doesn't give me an opportunity to not be playing outside or not be kind of engaging with him. So, I used to work all weekend or, do whatever needed to be done. But like I was saying before, having a child really changed my view and my priorities. So now weekends are very important for me. And I love nothing more than doing whatever it is with my son.
Yeah. Kids are great for that.
They're great. And he doesn't care what's happened at work.
No. And that's the thing though, having kids allows you to then think about them rather than think about work. It's like that forced barrier almost in terms of separating work from home.
Absolutely. When I'm on call, it makes it a little bit more challenging, but I do think that it is good for him to see, mum working and sometimes this is what we need to do. And I think it's just trying to role model so that, your children can also see what you're doing and what the impact is that you're having.
Yeah. But also talking to them about what you're doing and why and explaining it in terms that they will understand that's age appropriate of the impact that you're having on society and people around you.
Yeah, exactly right. He's definitely going to grow up with a good understanding of, others and their experiences and what they bring to the table. And, whether he goes into community services, that's up to him. But, my husband is also in the industry, so he's kind of surrounded by it at home.
Well, my oldest daughter, she got me this stress ball from the Father's Day store at school, and it was for your self-care. And I'm like,
love that.
Obviously what I'm doing and talking to her about what I do is rubbing off because she's got me this, and the message was, this is for your self-care. So, it's having an impact on the kids that we interact with and our kids as well.
Never lose that.
Yeah. Like
I
there
will
was
do
one
that.
time, a couple of years ago where my youngest daughter was three, like 2 or 3, and hadn't really seen a storm. But there was a
Mhm.
storm coming in, and young kids, they don't like storms, they don't like the noise. But the oldest one got down on the floor, held her hands, and led her through a breath exercise.
That's so special.
So it's definitely rubbing off on the kids,
Yeah,
and like kids are sponges; they absorb everything, and it's our
that's
job as parents to then filter what they're absorbing.
yes, yes. Logan, my son might see someone in a wheelchair, for example, out in the
Mm,
community. And I found that most of the time, a lot of these people are very happy to chat with him
yeah,
about their wheelchair, show him, bits and pieces, and
yep,
rather than just pointing and being like, "Oh, what's over there?"
mm,
It's really trying to engage him and educate him
yeah,
about different abilities, different equipment, and making it less of a stigma. It's not really anything different than you and I.
yep. That's it. So then, is there something that you can do that you for yourself that would then I don't know where I'm going with this one. This is going to be edited out. Um, um, I don't know. No idea. I'm not prepared at all. I have no questions. That's all the questions are coming from the conversation.
You're so fine.
There is only one planned question, and that is the last question of the episode.
Mhm.
Actually, we might just do that.
Okay, let's wrap it
Yeah.
up.
Okay. So I have a tradition on the podcast in closing, and it's what's one thing for your self care that you do that you think has the most benefit?
I do have an alarm in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I am not one to hop straight out of bed. So I thoroughly enjoy taking 10 minutes to lay in bed before I get up and we all get ready for the day. And
Yep.
my son and I, we talk about our day. We talk about, whether there's anything that's stressing us. We talk about whether we're looking forward to anything, um, and just take that moment to really focus our energy on what we've got to get done or
Yeah. Awesome.
how we've got to proceed with the day. And then we regroup when we get home and we kind of talk about it. And if
Yep.
there was something scary happening, it was very much we made it. We made it
Mm.
through. The worst thing happened and we're still here. And now next time, if this comes up again, this is how we can, handle it. So I
Yep.
don't know necessarily self-care wise, but it really just is a start and an end point of
Yeah.
what we do each day.
Yeah. I think having that conversation with him, you're saying when something negative goes wrong, it's like, well, I was able to handle that. I think a lot of people go, this is my worst day ever. But then they don't have that ability to think back and go, hang on, I've been through this before. And I said then it was my worst day ever, but I got through that as well.
Yeah.
Maybe I can get through this day as well.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very dramatic. If something happens, look, you won't hear the end of it for a hot minute,
Yeah.
but it's certainly an opportunity to reflect and be more prepared or be more aware of your reaction or how you handled something for next time.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining me today, Alannah.
Thanks for having me.
I'll put your link for LinkedIn in the show notes if anyone wants to get in contact with you. And if this episode has resonated with you, please share it with those around you. And remember to take care of yourself first so that you can take care of others. And I'll see you next week.